Good morning and welcome to Leveraging Extended Reality for Social and Emotional Learning and Career Exploration in After-School and Summer Programs. My name is Aisha Spradley, OSC Professional Learning Coordinator, and I will be the moderator for this session. I'd now like to introduce today's facilitator, Professor Jennifer Mowry.
Good morning, everyone. I hope you are doing good. Let's see, we're on a Thursday at 11, so almost towards the end of the week too, which is a good feeling. Maybe some of you were with us earlier this week on Tuesday. If so, welcome back. If not, and this is the first time you're attending this week, welcome to this great discussion that we're having on including immersive technology into our programs. I can go ahead and just ask that you advance the slide. We'll get right down to it because I'll tell you, when I was creating this PowerPoint, I was like, only an hour. Okay, only an hour, because it's such a great topic and it's a lot I want to cover. So I'll jump right into what you walk away with, hopefully today after being with us. And that is, number one, we're going to start to explore potential XR technologies that can support a social emotional learning environment and also that can support kiddos that are looking to start career exploration. The second learning objective for the morning, hopefully we can help you identify some different tools that can be used so that if you choose to simulate real world experiences for the youth, you know where to start with a toolkit, right? Then third learning objective for the morning, understand how we align some XR technologies to these existing social emotional learning and career readiness standards. And then finally, the last learning objective for the morning is really, how do we turn this into action? How can we execute? If I'm looking to make entry into including immersive technology into my program or my lessons, how can I make an action plan that's going to create some really awesome outcomes? So that's the roadmap that we're on here this morning. I hope that you will find some of it useful. We can go ahead and advance the slide a bit. What I thought I would do this morning is start us off with grounding in some vocabulary and some definitions. Because if you were with us on Tuesday, I was primarily using the terminology virtual reality. But you may have noticed now today, right in the title of the webinar, it has extended reality or XR. And I thought, maybe before we dive into how all these technologies can transform learning, it's probably going to be important that we start, again, grounding in some basic definitions. Because XR, AR, VR, MR, they're all terms that often do get used a little interchangeably, but it really, they each represent something distinct. So understanding the differences can really give us a clear foundation to build on. It allows us to be intentional in how we choose and apply these tools in our classrooms or our programs. So again, when we're clear on what each technology can do, we can make more informed decisions about what's going to best suit our goals, right? Whether it's using augmented reality or AR to enhance a science lesson, or maybe using virtual reality, VR, to take our students on a fully immersive historical journey, right? So I have those definitions listed on the screen, and I kind of put them in order because extended reality, almost visualize it like this umbrella, right? It's almost this umbrella term that the rest fall within or under. Here at Harrisburg University, we call the team that works on immersive technology our extended reality task force because it's the umbrella term. But then augmented reality, if you're looking at the slide there, it's going to add digital elements to our real world. Right? Have any of you heard of, what is it? It's Pokemon Go. It was an app that was pretty popular out there where you'd be walking down the street, but you put your device up and you could see that Pokemon figure out in your environment. This is an example of augmented reality. Our physical space and digital space are being combined. Now, virtual reality is going to be more of that full immersive experience. So maybe we're taking students on a field trip to see some type of ancient civilization and they're in headset, all right? And then mixed reality is the best of both worlds. It's going to combine the physical and digital worlds. Yesterday or Tuesday, if you were with me, we were talking about how the Meta Quest 3 now has that pass-through capability where you're in the headset, so you can see the room that you're in, but you can also interact with these digital images in real time. So anyway, I wanted to start us there because a lot of what I'm going to be discussing today is going to utilize all of this different terminology or vocabulary. So go ahead and if you would, please advance the slide. Another thing that I did on Tuesday was I started us off by kind of just taking a time warp into the future. And I have an image on that next slide, which kind of just serves as maybe something that you can imagine as we're kind of journeying forward here this morning. Are we able to just advance the slide one time? There's an image there that I was hoping they could see. I don't know. Aisha, do you know if we can just push it forward one? Oh, beautiful, thank you. So I used this image to just create, well, I used generative AI to create this image just to give you something to kind of look at and gaze into while I take us on a story into the future. And again, I like to kind of fast forward a little bit so that we can see the potential of this technology that is evolving so quickly. And then we'll come back into where we are today and maybe how we go about incorporating it into our days, our lessons, our classrooms. Okay, so imagine this. We travel forward maybe, I don't know, 20, 30 years, and now a high school student, we'll call her Emily. She walks into her home office and she puts on her augmented reality glasses, okay? She's not going to traditional school today, so there's no desks, no textbooks, and instead, she's about to begin a day in a future career simulation, all right? And this is a part of her after-school program. Emily has been interested in environmental science for a while, and today she's going to virtually shadow a climate change specialist or scientist, okay? Now, with just a tap on her AR interface, she's going to be transported into this virtual field station, and it's deep in the Amazon rainforest. She can almost feel the humidity on her skin. She can hear the birds in the canopy. She can see the river flowing beside the trees. A digital assistant is going to pop up and explain to her that maybe deforestation is rapidly changing the landscape. And her task in this environment is to collect data on the health of the ecosystem. And she'll have to use critical thinking. She'll have to use teamwork to make decisions about how to respond to these real world challenges, okay? Now, suddenly, a notification pops up in her AR glasses, and a team of students from different parts of the world are joining her in this rainforest. And together, they're going to solve a series of challenges that environmental scientists maybe face every day. One student will take on the role as a data analyst. Maybe another student takes on the role of a public policy advisor. And Emily, she assumes the role of that field scientist. And they're all going to work together virtually, right, to determine the best course of action to save this fragile ecosystem. Now, through their AR glasses, they can see visual data on deforestation trends. Maybe they can see data on wildlife migrations, climate patterns. And again, what's key here is they're making decisions in real time. Now, later in that day, let's say that Emily and her immersive experience shifts a bit. Now, maybe she's part of a virtual meditation room for a conflict resolution exercise. And maybe the task here is that she's going to help two virtual parties come to a compromise over land use disputes, okay? Maybe there's environmental preservation versus development. She's going to listen. She's going to empathize with both sides. She's going to use her social emotional learning skills to help guide this conversation towards resolution. So now, as Emily logs off from her big day, she's walking away from more than just a fun game, right? She feels more confident in her ability to communicate with others, to manage conflicts, and to really make real world decisions. She learned to be empathetic with people who are having opposing viewpoints. She's developed some leadership skills, and she's really explored a career path that maybe even a couple years ago, it would have been an impossible experience for her. So again, this isn't just preparation for a future job. It's this real world learning that's honestly happening now. And it's preparing her to thrive in whatever career she chooses. So again, this is just this idea of taking a glimpse into where we could be heading with immersive technology, that XR can really offer us a big future for our students. Again, it won't, and it isn't just about learning facts or completing worksheets. What we're striving to do is really put our students in these real world environments where they're solving problems, exploring career paths, and building some of those critical skills that they're going to need for their future. So that is where we are journeying together today. Again, we time warped out into the future, and now we'll come back and look at where we are today. So if we can go ahead and advance the slide again, I'll just quickly start off with maybe like why, right? Why use XR for social and emotional learning? And really, I went out and read about this a bit over the week, and I found pretty much three key themes. Teaching empathy, right? XR allows students to really step into another person's perspective. And that is a great way to teach the idea of being empathetic. Number two, collaboration was a key trend. XR is going to encourage teamwork through this ability to share virtual tasks. And then finally, communication, big one. I teach at the graduate level, and we continue to talk about how communication is key. And XR is going to allow us to provide simulations to create opportunities to practice those social skills. If we advance the slide just one more time, I have just a couple pieces of literature. On Tuesday's session, I provided a big body of literature review, and those documents, if you weren't here on Tuesday, or even if you were and you want to refer back, I understand that those will be made available on the website for you to look at. I went a little lighter with my literature review today because I want to show off some of the technology and maybe get into a little bit more of that today. But I did put just a couple citations here that really just, I think, help defend how XR technology supports social emotional learning and also career exploration are themes today. So that first citation, real fresh from 2023, talks about how XR is going to boost cognitive, emotional, social, and behavioral engagement. And this study in particular was done on a high school biology class. It's really good for biology. We use immersive tech for biology here at the university. And then that second citation down, again from 2021, really talks a lot about how mixed reality simulations are going to provide us with these active learning tools, and that's going to help push that social emotional learning, especially in these instances where we're remote learning, right? When the kiddos may be at home or we're geographically dispersed, and we want to bring everybody together in that same environment and have that inclusion and interaction. So I did link both of those studies when you obtain the documents. If you want to dive deeper into those, you can. Where we're going to head next is going to be, again, more into the technology. I have a couple of videos and some images and a technology toolkit, because I feel like that's going to be some big key takeaways for today's session. So I guess before we advance the slide, I want to just give you a segue on the video that I'm going to show next. And it's only about a minute and a half. It'll be quick, but hopefully impactful. And it comes from our partner, Engage. Now, Engage is going to be the partner that here at the university we use to host our immersive spaces, whether that be a classroom, an expo hall, a field trip to the moon. This is going to be, picture it like like the room that we're in today, like a Zoom room, but it's an immersive version. So we'll go ahead and just take a look at the Engage video and just pay attention to a couple things. Look at how we can represent ourselves as avatars in the immersive space. Look at how we can be more creative than just four walls, some desks and chairs with our learning environment. And also, I just want you to be aware that Engage is a potential partner for you and your institution because they are very focused on education and creating, affordable entry points to being able to include this in your curricula. So if we can go ahead now with that segue into the next slide and hit play, we'll just observe this quick trailer from Engage.
We all experience the world in unique ways. Through our senses, we gather information and build cognitive process to understand concepts. This is how we learn. But what if we could push these boundaries past our physical world?
Fire!
What if you could communicate with anyone in the world, yet feel like you were in the same room? If you could meet and learn.
Why would you make me put it up the highest?
So you tell me when
From teammates globally, sharing media and ideas. Or jump into a simulated training.
But the real test is being able to do the right thing in a stressful situation.
To gain a deeper understanding of the task at hand.
And then just squeezing the trigger to squeeze the bag.
You have ventilated the baby, and now it's time to reassess.
Please fasten your seatbelts, sir.
Creating real-world scenarios, improving employee knowledge and skills.
Exactly, plant another tree. And this time we put it up the top.
Imagine if quality education was accessible to all, regardless of geographical location.
Large hazard and increase the risk to these big cities.
What if no field trip is too far or impossible? A world of immersive experiences. Engage, communicate, teach, learn.
So hopefully that was useful, just so that you could kind of get a visual aid behind some of these spaces that I refer to as I'm trying to give you some ideas of where you may be able to incorporate the immersive technology in what you do. So we can go ahead and advance the slide again. And here, my colleague, Matthew Rissler, for whom I believe is on with us this morning as well, we collaborated earlier this week on trying to put together a technology toolbox or toolkit for you. Again, this slide's all linked up so that when you get it, you can click around and take a look. Matthew, I think you're on. Do you want to walk through this one? Hi, good morning.
Good morning. Is my audio working?
Yeah, you sound good.
Okay. Yeah. So as far as the hardware and things go, we're pretty excited that the MetaQuest 3S has been released as of a few weeks ago. So for a lot of the high schools that need lower cost equipment, that boundaried entry, we're now looking at something that is low cost. So that's the link there. That includes the same pass-through quality of the MetaQuest 3. The resolution of the screen is slightly less, but the processing power, the frame rates, and things like that are there. MetaQuest 3. So these two headsets, they're kind of that bottom tier of what I call it with VR, where people no longer get sick. Quest 2 is 50% of people. For this, there still is about that 10%. Don't put people in roller coasters. just don't do it. People seem to really flock to that. A lot of these when they go into VR, be mindful of that if students, after the initial things want to. But when we're looking at teaching, things like that, look at things that don't move around too much. There are more expensive options. Well, Bifocus Vision came out about a month ago. You're talking 2 to 2.5K per eye. So it's like putting a 5K screen on your face. so very high quality, and all of these can be plugged to a desktop as well. So for all the Steam environments, even Engage, when you have a desktop unit, you sync it, you'll have even higher quality. The software Engage, Victor XR, those technically are very similar platforms. Victor XR actually started as as kind of an extension to Engage, and they developed a lot of their own software. But there's a lot of overlap, and they have also a lot of 360 videos. So they've done over 50 to 100 tours from all across the world in 360 video. So not just the 3D spaces that you can explore, but also these immersive videos. You can see elephants, walking in the safari. You can see Angel Falls. Don't take people there as a first experience, because you're kind of hanging a few thousand feet in the air of this waterfall. It does freak a few people out. But in that, as they get acclimated and they get used to it, step up into that. These softwares can take you all around the world. Eon Reality is one of those that our university actually almost went with. Their primary focus is actually mixed reality and AI. So they do work with iPad very well, and now they've really enhanced their VR and AR capabilities with the Quest 3. But that's all about taking things apart, being able to see factory floors, a lot of them building essentially PowerPoints, using 3D models and walking through and doing tests on naming and labeling things. CoSpaces, EU, another just 3D environment for people to join in. I will note all of these work through the desktop as well. So the multi-user aspects work with both the headsets and the desktops, and even Engage, Victor XR, they work on your cell phone as well. So it's not as much you can do for obvious reasons, processing power. But if for some reason someone can't join in a headset or a desktop, you can jump in with a little avatar, like it's a little game. In Engage, Victor XR, Rec Room, all work through your cell phone. Labster, we have on here because it while it's not VR, it's a desktop lab space, and they have a lot of research that they did that showed that people studying in there, because of the lack of fear around their spilling things and causing a mess, and then the labeling and whatnot, and the ability to do it at home in particular also helps. Those allow for full chemistry processes to all be learned. Organic chem as well, biochem. And last, we put it on here because we do usually occasionally. Rec Room is actually a immersive, I'll call it gaming space. But I've hosted classes in this space. One of its really cool features is you can pull out a video camera and set it up, and that can be what your desktop shares. And I've used it. I've jumped into calls like this, and instead of being me on a video, it was me in the VR space as an avatar giving the lesson. And in this full immersive space, where then I could grab all these other interactive items and pull in. Engage and Victor XR also do that. They just don't have that video camera feature, so you have to have a second person jump in with their computer. But so all of these are linked. So when you guys get the PowerPoint, you can click any of these, and it will take it directly to those locations, to those websites. But while each one of those, so that hundreds of, so in those spaces, let's start with that. In those spaces, there's a listing of, here's all the locations you can go to we're talking more than 200 locations, everything from Mars to the moon, to underwater. There's also things already set up, giant chessboards, recordings from professors from Harvard, where it's their 3D avatar walking through a whole lesson, and the ones on the solar system, and it has models that pop up of the solar system that spin around you and show things to scale. So in each one of those, there's just listings of all their videos and their activities. So you just have to kind of go into those apps and scroll through what they have. And their websites talk quite a bit about what they have. In beyond that, though, there are hundreds of other experiences within the Quest store, where everything from 360 experiences and videos and for sharks and underwater, to welding, to the Anne Frank house, and that one's free, so you can go a whole interactive experience talking about Anne Frank. But those coming all, there are yeah, you can click that and it just scroll through there. So and I kind of think that there is a lot more, but this is kind of a starting point. If you look through these and you're like, I'm looking for something in particular, where would I find it? Then you just reach out and ask around. And there are a lot of particular experiences. The Titanic tour there's a whole, and the MetaQuest store, that the whole visit around the Titanic is quite nice. A number of things with World War II, like I said, Anne Frank house is one of the big ones. But so on that, I did also put a link here, MetaQuest 3, if you don't care about it being brand new, 380 for renewed. So I put that on here as well. But unless there's other questions on this tech, this is kind of a starting point. I didn't put desktop VR in here because you're talking 2,000, 2.5K plus per unit, and unless a school is looking for something that kind of rotates through and wants that really high quality, then, and I found that we found that a lot of prohibitive for a lot of places, so we just don't post it. But if you want the desktop versions as well, things like Big Screen Beyond, they're easily searchable. The quality is magnificent. And then, like at Harrisburg University, at a lot of our events, we have them set up for use. And the teachers that come through, when they put these on, they go, "Oh, that's why it's important." I can see teaching in that environment. So anything, like I said, anything before the Quest 3, a lot of these kits that are still out there that include older ones, they're novel, they're kind of cool, but they really aren't repeatable, and they don't have the breadth. And when you're talking a few hundred, like 100 or two more for like the MetaQuest 3S versus prior systems for a whole class like Google Cardboard or something, there's really no comparison. And the one system is literally, if you've ever got an iPad and like, oh, here's 50 different things we can do with iPad now, there's way more than 50 different things that you can do with these for every single class. So okay, so I'm gonna jump to a few of these questions since they're relevant here. Yes, we're providing links. So all of these things that are underlined here are links. If there's something particular, we can link you to that as well. So I failed to somewhat mention the main point. So you asked here about, can XR learning program be adapted to address personalized learning needs? 100%. So both Engage and Victor XR and Neon Reality, there's all three. One of the things they have is they have AI teachers. And so you can talk to them and it adapts the learning style to the student based on the questions the student asks. So there is that that can really adapt, and they've proven that in the tests they've done so far, people learn 50% faster in those environments. So there's that. The second is, these are classroom environments. If you can teach by PowerPoint, if you can teach by 3D video, if you can teach on a whiteboard, you can teach in these environments. Any single thing that has been taught in a classroom on a whiteboard or a PowerPoint, I can put in here and start teaching in 30 minutes to an hour. So if one of you sent me a PowerPoint and we're like, hey, teach you this, then yeah, it can be on in an hour and be set up and ready to go. So it's just another tool, just like setting up this type of environment, joining people together. These headsets don't require a secondary device, and that's a big point of why I put these. So they all have built-in applications, and all of them, these three I focused, all work with Engage, Victor XR, Eon Reality. So these are all ones in Rec Room, ones that can just be loaded onto these devices without a desktop. However, if you have a desktop, it can be plugged into a desktop and then have almost identical performance as these other specialized desktop units by just plugging it into a desktop. The desktop, kind of to give a warning though, the desktop does need to be essentially a gaming desktop. If it costs less than $1,000 and was built and bought less than a year ago, it's probably not good enough. So it does require expensive. If you're talking laptop, a gaming laptop above around 1,600 can do it. But the better you have, the better visuals are. So, and the higher the frame rates are. If you have a tablet or cell phone, you can stream these. So like the Quest 3, you can watch what people see on the headset from your phone. So it does help with walking someone through, or even a student, when you can see what they see to guide them through. But if you're in something like Engage, you can just be in your own headset or on a desktop and walk them through that way. Yes, there are credentialing as well already. And there, Jen, already starting to link stuff. But there are about 3 major certificates out there right now that can be earned in terms of teaching in VR and things like that. And just certificates that certify that you know how to use Engage and Victor XR. And that should be it. So I think so all these that I've shared here are wireless, and micro-credentialing for students as well. So beyond micro-credentialing related to using the technology, so students could get those micro certificates as well. However, for students, there are micro certificates in nursing, in carpentry, in piloting a drone, in agriculture, and some type of manufacturing as well. They have welding and a few things like that also give certificates. So they're through Engage Victory XR, they do have these microcerts that then students can earn as well. And we've also recently partnered with another group for advanced manufacturing, which has a certificate in advanced manufacturing as well, which works on the MetaQuest 3, and it goes through and you name all the tools and clean your manufacturing workspace and all that. But all of these are wireless, don't require to be plugged in except for the battery. So they have about 2 to 3 hour battery. For all of ours, we get the extra battery that sits on the back, so it lasts. It does actually last a good 3 hours. Otherwise, a lot of times we see they only last about an hour and a half without that extra battery. And so then, yeah, you can only have that hour and a half session, then you got to plug them in until they charge again. No other questions? We'll pass it back to Jen.
I'm so glad everybody's asking the questions. This is an important part of today's webinar, is making sure that you know how to start, and this technology toolbox is the starting point. So we will continue to be available for some of your questions even after the webinars. We'll make sure that our contact information is out there so that we can best support anybody that's looking to make these moves. So thank you, Matthew. I think this was a really insightful slide. And again, kind of like the bulk of what we wanted you to walk away with today, but hey, I'll still get into a couple more things. Why not? So if we can advance the slide, part of our requirements for this webinar were to take a look at just how we can best align the activities to the things that we have going on in our out of school time. And, not necessarily an area of expertise for me, since I work in higher ed with adults. So I had to do a little digging and research here, but it was so much fun to do. So I can look at other places where immersive technology has an intersection, and it definitely existed. So what I went out and learned is that, when we think about aligning XR activities with both social and emotional learning and also career readiness, I suppose it's crucial for us to recognize that XR can do more than teach the academic content, right? It's a tool that can actively develop the skills that our students need to succeed, both personally and in their professional lives, right? I have young kids, so I'm able to really relate to all of this as a mom too. So the collaborative for the academic, social, and emotional learning, this framework that I have up here on the slide, again, it was a little new to me, but I think it's pretty relatable to our audience. This is what, as far as I understand, defines our social and emotional learning competencies. So this is going to include things like self-awareness, social awareness, relationship skills. And there are indeed XR activities that can really immerse students in scenarios where they have to practice these skills, right? It's a matter of practicing. Whether it is something like I mentioned earlier, a virtual meditation session where they need to navigate social dynamics, or maybe it's an empathy building experience where they have to take on someone else's perspective. So again, it's not just for the sciences and the hard skills, right? There are totally opportunities for the soft skills as well. Now, on the career side of things, we can look at key skills like problem solving. We can look at adaptability and teamwork, because these are all vital in a modern workplace, right? And XR is going to be an incredible tool for developing all these skills. XR can simulate real-world environments, right, that are going to require students to adapt and to collaborate with others. They're going to have to work on the same type of challenges that they would face in their future careers. Just for instance, there could be an XR simulation that involves a team-based problem-solving task, where students have to work together to tackle maybe an environmental challenge or a business crisis, and they'll need to communicate effectively. They'll need to think critically. They'll need to work as a cohesive team, right, to succeed. And they'll have all those safe boundaries in place too when they're working in a virtual world. So what I did next is I wanted to show you some of the work that I've done for real in the classroom, because I thought that maybe if you saw some of the application, it would also just kind of prompt some ideas for how you walk away from today and think about your lesson plans and your programs. So let me foreshadow this project I'm going to show you here in a second. It's going to be a video clip of avatars, my team, working in an immersive space. Now, my background is IT project manager before coming to academia. So my job is now to teach students how to do some of that IT development work. And I used an immersive space to do a very particular activity that we do in agile project management. And some of you might have heard about this. When we have our requirements and we're going to build something, we work together as a team to size those requirements. what we're trying to do is figure out how many resources and how much time are we going to need to build this deliverable, okay? Now, not to go too far into my area of expertise, but in agile methods specifically, we gamify this sizing of requirements with a fun game called Agile Poker. Picture poker cards, right? We all have poker cards, and we put our poker cards up and we get our poker faces on, and we'll be presented with a task that we need to complete in IT. Maybe it's just a research task, and everybody has their deck of cards, and they need to put a card down that shows the number for which they believe this task should be weighted, okay? This is agile poker. So I was thinking through, well, this requires teamwork. It requires consensus building. It requires being empathetic to other people's thoughts and opinions on the size of the task. So I threw this activity of planning poker in an IT environment into an immersive world. And we recorded it when we did it. And I thought I'd bring that recording to you today, just so that you can see now all these different skills that we're talking about applied in 2 minutes in an immersive space. So in a second, we'll advance this slide and we'll hit play on this recording. I find that when the recording plays, it's like a little bit louder and it's my voice. And anytime you hear your own voice in a loud recording, you're like, oh my gosh, is that what I really sound like? So if you need to turn it down, I will not be offended. But anyway, let's go ahead and advance the slide. It's about a 2-minute clip.
So the task that we're going to consider first as a team here is, if we're going to be building these content creators in virtual reality, our first task is going to be to perform some research and analysis. So I'd like the team to think about what we already know and start thinking about how big of a task, what size is the work for just our research and analysis phase. And please go stand by the card that represents your sizing for the research and analysis phase. Interesting. Okay, so everybody's in place? Yep. All right. So we have one member of our development team at 21, another member of our development team at 8, and another development team member at 3. So now we got to try to figure out why there's disparity here. Why are we, not aligned, not calibrated with this task? So does anybody want to explain why you picked the number you picked? Yeah, 21.
Yeah, so for me, I think this is something that we haven't really done before as a team. So I think it's really going to take a lot of research, a lot of reaching out to folks in our network, and we really want to do this right. We don't want to rush through it. So to me, I think it's a really large scale effort here, which is why I chose 21.
Awesome. Okay, let's go to the other end of the spectrum here and talk about why do you think it's a 3?
I think this is going to be super easy. I think the team is really experienced in this. I think this is going to be a trivial task. We're going to be able to get it done quickly, and we're going to be able to get it done right. I have total faith.
All right. And number 8, where are you at with this research and analysis task? Why the 8?
So I decided to be somewhere in the middle because even though it may be easy, I believe there should be enough research done to make sure it's thorough, but at the same time we need to rely on efficiency. Therefore, there must be a balance in between a lot of research and a little bit. That's why I'm in the middle.
All right, dev team, if you can come back out to the center of our tropical stage area here, I'd like us to consider everything that the team has discussed, and let's have just one more round of voting after we've heard from each other and see where we come up to now. So again, this task that we're sizing is on research and analysis. Please re-vote now that we've had a chance to have a conversation about the task. Go stand by your card with any new considerations that you may have gained. All right, seems like everybody's in place, and this is good because we are closing the gap, and this is exactly what would happen. Through rounds and rounds of planning poker, what we would hope for is that any large spread in the Fibonacci sequence for sizing starts to shrink. And we have limited time here today, but imagine what one or two more detailed conversations we could have to kind of close that gap even more. And what we would do is then where we land on the final round, that would be how we size this task. And obviously planning poker and sizing the work, it helps us be more predictive. And that's what a lot of agile development teams are looking for, is predictability, so that they can go ahead and communicate that out to their customers and their stakeholders. So I just want to thank the team for having a great round of planning poker and demonstrating this neat way that we can use gamification to size our work. Nice work, team.
So I know we dedicated a little bit of time to that, but I wanted to just show you, these are some of those soft skills in action, right? We're working as a team, we're communicating, we're building consensus, right? But we're doing it as avatars in a tropical oasis with big playing cards. So it's just an idea of how you can take some of the things that we're talking about here in these webinars and turn them into something for real, something that is a memorable activity that these kids are going to walk away from and say they're never going to forget playing agile poker in a tropical oasis, right? Okay, let's go ahead and move forward, and we'll start wrapping things up. So I want to allow some time at the very end for more questions too, but this slide I just threw in there because I wanted to provide another piece of work that's come out of working directly with students with immersive technology at the university. So just about, I don't know, maybe like a year or so ago, maybe half a year, we were presented by the Department of Health a case study where we were to look at different solutions for enabling urban community growing. So putting the ability to grow our own food in the hands of folks that are not farmers. And our students were challenged with this case. How do we teach urban communities to grow their own food? And they came up with virtual reality education as their solution. So these were just some of the pictures from the slide, but I wanted to share it with you just because rather than it being something that a teacher has produced as a learning solution, this was an instance where our students came up with an immersive solution to a community problem. And really, in the end, what they were showing, the picture on the left there was a young lady that's using the pass-through technology in a headset to have knowledge integrated while she's growing. How far away should the seeds be placed when planting them? Maybe how deep into the soil does the seed need to be for successful growth? So again, enabling these tasks that communities need with virtual reality technology. Another part of the solution that our students came up with was they wanted sponsorship on creating this van on the right where we could show up in communities throughout the state of Pennsylvania and have our virtual reality technology packaged up in a way where it could go to those communities and teach them to grow food with immersive technology. So anyway, I thought this was just a cool little showcase piece. We can go ahead forward and I'll begin to wrap things up. I think there's just another slide or two. So let's see here. Yeah, if you guys could just advance it. We have the action plan, which will be the way that we wrap up today. Yeah, perfect. Thank you very much. So if you were with me on Tuesday, you know, the message for the action plan was start small. And it's still a little bit of that today as well, some carryover. But I also added, you know, some of the principles that I've picked up in my journey of design thinking. With design thinking, we really want to start with for whom are we serving? So make sure that we understand what do our students need, making sure we understand the gaps and the skills that they have today. After we empathize and we think about who our target audience is and what they need, then we can move on to creating a problem statement. And once we have a problem statement, now these two things, empathizing and knowing our audience and understanding their problem, that helps inform the way that we're going to incorporate the technology into our curricula, okay? So for instance, let's just say that We've identified that our students struggle to connect with people within the classroom. Maybe they lack some of the things like teamwork, communication, and problem-solving skills. So we define a problem. Students lack opportunities for career exploration and social learning development skills. And teachers need to innovate to deliver this engaging content. Okay. We identified our audience, we have a problem. Now we start to ideate on solutions, ideate an activity or a concept, that's gonna help us bridge this gap. Maybe it is an XR activity like job shadowing. Maybe it is something that helps like a collaboration simulation, like I showed a couple minutes ago. Really, when we're building out these plans, we wanna set goals too of how we're going to be able to move the needle on that gap. So what are our goals in developing maybe empathy? What are our goals in developing teamwork? Because if we have goals, now we can have our baseline data of where we were in that problem and what we hopefully achieve as far as outcomes in our classrooms or our program. So after we've gone through these 3 steps, right, empathize, define the problem, and ideate a potential solution, now we get into creating that experience. We'll begin kind of prototyping, right? We'll choose a tool from that toolkit that we provided earlier as a slide. We will look at the key features that we want to show within that tool. Again, virtual job scenarios, teamwork challenges, some type of social emotional reflection. And then once we build up that nugget that we want to put in our lesson plan, remember, it doesn't have to be the whole lesson. Just a nugget in the beginning can be very impactful. Start small. Then we'll test, make sure it's going to work, because we don't want to be juggling technology in front of our classes or our students. We want to have it tested, make sure that we'll have smooth implementation. So we can do this through a little pilot, maybe with peers or just a couple students, but small group test so that we can reflect on how it's going to work. And now from here, with time, we can begin to scale. We can start measuring that success, gaining the confidence in integration and build it out. And then I'm a project manager, so I had to put down there at the bottom, give yourself a nice timeline too. It's not something that you have to necessarily bust out in a day. The technology is getting easier where you can get things done more quickly. But I think when we're beginning, we should give ourselves some breathing space to build that confidence. I recommend like 12 weeks maybe to move through these steps, identify the audience and have empathy, create that problem, do the ideation, then build the prototype, test, then implement. All right, guys, well, I think that is it. So I didn't leave too much time here at the end for questions, and I'm sorry for that. I hope that we got a lot of those questions taken care of in the tech session, because at least we were able to address the chat there. The last slide is just the key takeaways. I hope that you're feeling that there is a connection between student engagement and immersive experiences. I hope you hit that message that I enforced a few times: start small, introduce very manageable activities in the beginning. I hope you're walking away with the idea that it's not just the science or the hard skills. We can definitely use XR to enhance things like soft skills, communication, empathy, and problem solving. We can simulate real world scenarios. And we really just have the opportunity to grow this quickly. So that's all I have for you today. Any other questions popping up in the chat or things that we can answer in our last few minutes? I'd be happy to do so.
We had a thank you from Amanda Kessler.
Thank you.
Yeah, I got a question. Go ahead. Someone else was on speaking. Okay, question came through direct to me, actually, but I'll share it here with the group and the experts leading this session. But it was regarding the poker and the learning how to manipulate the avatar. The question is, couldn't that be more effective in the classroom or on a whiteboard, that if students were actually like engaged themselves physically rather than in the virtual space? That's kind of the question.
So, absolutely. You know, when my team was on site, we played poker at a table in the physical world together. what happened was disruption. The global pandemic put my teams in a place where we were now geographically dispersed, and we had to get creative on how can we still have those awesome team games and fun and collaboration sessions, but when we're not able to be together. And then there's also just globalization generally. You know, teams, students, classrooms are now spread out all around the world. So whereas it might be ideal to conduct these type of activities in a physical space together, when we have those limitations, this is another opportunity to be together and collaborate in that way.
And if I can kind of add to that, the other thing is that there's also things you can do with the VR that you can't do otherwise. So even if you're in person, a lot of designers find themselves putting on the headset, even when they're there in person, to then be able to draw and do artwork in 3D and be able to sculpt, be able to move around whiteboards, have an infinite supply of whiteboards. You don't have to just, oh, now I have to erase it to do more, right? You can just move it to the side and have another whiteboard. Or if you have particular objects that you want to talk about, instead of being like, oh, right, all I can do is pull up a picture on my phone or on the computer, you can now pull up a 3D object of that. And whether that's talking about the heart or whether that's talking about lungs or molecules, the COVID virus, right? Doctors were able to pull it up and pull up the actual thing in 3D and be like, oh, here's the bind sites. Here's how it would connect. So there are things you can do in there that you can't even do in real life that extend and make it even better sometimes than just being in person.
Thank you, Jen and Matthew. If I could add on to what you both said there, because that's exactly right. When we were talking about students that might be attending their regular school day online, but still want to be part of after school. So if you have this technology, it allows those students to join that almost social part of the after school. But I want us to also think about the after school and the students that don't come and why they don't come and what they're doing when they're not in the after school program. So first, we just assume they're, out trying to find something to do in the community, and we know that's not good. But we know there are a lot of students that are racing home to get on their game systems, to play with someone in New Orleans, New York, and do some of the same stuff, but in a more competitive way. So this is actually meeting our students where they're at and welcoming them to the program to say, look, you don't have to go home to get on virtual space and be creative or compete or do whatever it is. So it's bringing that technology that they might elsewhere be going to go find to your program that may excite them to come to the program. And then right before your VR session or after your VR session, you talk a little bit about some of the homework or other the schoolwork that they've been a task or assigned to as well. So just thinking as the carrot to bring students in, but it's also disguising a lot of the learning and some of the soft skills that they will need entering the workforce in a couple years. I want to say Jen has led us to believe this could happen in 2044 and 20 years from now. I'm thinking that we're going to be a lot closer to 2000 and probably 30. So really think about your second, third, fourth graders right now that may not fit this space, but it will matter to them when they get of age of that 13, 14, to be able to understand this technology in the educational space. It doesn't always have to be the game at home. So thank you for allowing me to just expand a little bit into that out of school time space and how this could help in your recruitment of students and even parents joining in on some of the activities that you have going on without putting them on the stage, so to speak. So I'll stop right there.
If I can add one final comment, there are entire charter schools. There's one founded in Florida already that entirely teaches in VR. So there are already online programs, and then there's over 60 some universities that have digital twins of their campus that are teaching online as well.
All right, that concludes our session for today. We hope you enjoyed the presentation and found the strategies for using VR, XR, and OSC spaces to enhance social emotional learning and career exploration valuable. The link in the chat is specifically related to the session's content, and we'll be sending out a second email that will allow you to get Act 48 credit for your attendance. Thank you so much for joining us and have an amazing day.
Before we talk, Amanda, did you have a question? You had your hand up? Amanda Perriton? No? Okay. All right. Good to see you. Yeah. Bye, everybody. Have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you, Jennifer. We'll be in touch.
Yeah, definitely. I'm gonna run off to class, but we'll
Great.
catch up for sure.
Have a
Take
great
care.
rest of your day. Awesome. Thank you.
You too. Thank you.